Hi, my name is Matt Widgery from FramedPlanet.com, the best place on the internet to get your photography, news, entertainment and inspiration. Welcome to episode 3 of the Framed Planet podcast, and coming up today we're going to be having a look at the latest Fujifilm firmware. There are updates for a number of cameras, 7 in total, including the venerable X Pro 1 3 years after launch, and they're still putting out updates for that. That has got to be something worth celebrating. We'll also be looking at a story that came out in The Guardian this week, which is the latest trend for hiring a pro photographer to follow you around on your holiday and take pictures so that you look at your awesome, most awesome bestness on Instagram and other social media. What do you think about that? We'll be diving into that in a little bit. Also, we'll be looking at the Instagram U-turn on the square format pictures. The square pictures which have made them famous and iconic have been, they're still there, but you can now do portrait and landscape, both in stills and videos. So we'll be unpicking that story a little bit, and also having a look at the Photoshop mobile app, which is going to be launched in October. But on top of all of that, a little bit of news from Framed Planet. I am very proud and pleased to announce that this podcast is now available for download on iTunes. So head over to iTunes, search for Framed Planet Podcast, and this will come up. So let's have a little look, first of all, at the Fuji story. Those of us that own Fuji film cameras, one of the reasons we love them so much, and one of the reasons why a lot of people actually come over to these cameras in their droves, is because even after you've bought a camera, even some 2 or 3 years later in some cases, you will still be getting firmware updates with new features and which you didn't have when you bought the camera. So it's almost like buying a new camera or getting a new camera sent to you for free every year, which is brilliant. Now, the latest update may only be for ensuring compatibility with Windows 10. It might not necessarily be adding extra features and extra functionality to the camera, but nevertheless, it is actually quite impressive that they are including some of their older cameras, including the X Pro 1, which missed out on the last round of updates in Firmware 4. There wasn't anything new for X Pro 1 users in that one, but there will be for this one. So this time round, the X100S, the X20, the X30, the XE2 and the XQ2, as well as the X Pro 1, will be in the first batch of cameras to get the update. Don't worry if you're trying to find a pencil to scribble that list down and see if your cameras are included. I will be sending, as always, there'll be links to the articles that I cover in this podcast in the show notes afterwards, so do go over and check out that for the full list. After that, next month, the XA2 will get the firmware, and beyond that it'll be December. So depending on when you're listening to this, so this is as I record, it's August the 29th 2015, so next month in that case is going to be September, and that's going to be for the XA2, and then December is 2015. So if you're listening to this podcast at some point in the future, it will already have come out if you're listening to it post that date. So what happens, I hear you cry, if you are not a Windows 10 user? Is it still worth installing the updated firmware to your cameras? I would say absolutely it is. You never know what they're going to bring out, just in terms of little bug fixes which they may be piggybacking alongside the main reason for the firmware update. So there might well be little bits and bobs that they're putting in there which, if you don't have them installed, it's just always worth getting updates installed and running with the latest versions of firmware with whatever you do. So I would definitely recommend going ahead and doing that. Again, if you head over to the FramePlanet.com article, there's a link to that in the show notes, and there will be all the links there about how you do that. But I just think it's wonderful, really, that Fujifilm are still continuing to support these older cameras. It's interesting, actually, that in that list of the first cameras that come out, the X-T1 is not in there, so that's pretty interesting. I guess that will be happening later on, but or maybe it's new enough that it's already, maybe they thought of that already. I don't know. Although it does say the rest of the cameras will be getting the treatment later on, so maybe it will be getting them in towards the end of the year. So really interesting that they're actually giving preferential treatment to X Pro 1 users over XT1 users, which redresses the balance a little bit, because I know that when Firmware 4 came out, and my X-T1 got a nice shiny new set of features. My X Pro 1 was sitting on the shelf a little bit saying, what about me? I didn't get anything at all. So I'm very pleased that there is going to be some more stuff happening for that lovely camera. And also, by the way, there are some very interesting rumours coming out about what could be happening in the near future vis-a-vis an X Pro 2. If you check out episode 2 of this podcast, we actually discuss a possible preview of the X Pro 2 sensor, which may be going on sale in the updated version of the X100T. Again, it's a rumoured camera, we don't know for sure, but go ahead and check out episode 2 of the podcast after you finish listening to this one, and that'll give you some more information about that. And of course, as always, you can head over to the website and read the full article as well. So how about this? Next time you go on holiday, are you planning on hiring a professional photographer to come with you so that you look your absolute bestest on holiday? A lot of people who, when they get their nice new bikini or whatever it is, or their nice new sort of summer clothes to go on holiday with, a lot of people spend the months leading up to their holiday furiously working out and dieting and exercising and everything to get themselves looking beach fit. There's a big industry around that, making sure that people look as good as they possibly can. And the latest sort of pushing of the envelope on that, it appears that there are several companies now that are with your package holiday, as well as getting things like some meals included and maybe some day trips, you can actually have a photographer to come around with you and take nice pictures of you. No longer will you be taking blurry iPhone selfies to update your social media presence about the lovely trip that you're on to gloat to your friends back in Blighty, but you will have some wonderful glossy photos that you can put up instead. So this was a story that came out in The Guardian this week. They've been looking at the trend. They spoke to Linda Fox, who's deputy editor at tech site T News, and she said that travel photography is among the most viewed content on social media, and so therefore there is obviously a lot of people that are mainly using social media to put their travel and holiday pictures up on, and a recent Facebook survey actually back in January this year revealed that 83% of us now use the internet while we're on holiday. So we're not sitting looking out at the beach, we're checking up Facebook and our Instagram and everything else. That means we can upload the pictures pretty much straight away. And what these companies are doing, they're not just offering the photographic services, but also an uploading service. I think they can either give you the pictures which you can upload directly, and it's possible even, I'm not entirely sure, but it's possible even that they may offer a service for them uploading them as well. I'm not too sure about that, but you certainly do get a set of professional photographs to put up there. It's clearly something that people are willing to pay for. There are 3 companies that have been cited by the article that are doing this now. El Camino Travel, Flytographer and Shoot My Travel are all offering services, and they seem to be popular, and costs are ranging from about £160 up to £1,325 per trip, depending on how many photos, how many days that the photographer stays with you, and so on. But yeah, I mean, there will be some people, no doubt, that think this is crazy, and why would you ever spend £1,000 to have somebody come around and take holiday pictures for you? But then the other side is that if you can afford to do it and you want to have really nice pictures, then why not? Just in the same way that you might hire somebody to shoot a wedding for you, or other key events. A lot of people are hiring photographers to shoot parties and things like that. Basically, memorable occasions in people's lives. It's nice to have them documented in a professional way. And if you've got the disposable income to hire a professional to do that, so that you look your absolute best and those memories are captured, and it frees you up to then go and enjoy your holiday. You're not, if you're not a photographer yourself, you're not worried about making sure you're having enough pictures to document the experience. You can go ahead and enjoy your holiday and let somebody else take care of that for you. So that's great news, I think, for photography generally, because the more new markets there are opening up for photographers, I'm entirely in favour of that. And it's obviously a great niche for professionals to explore, or people wanting to become professionals to explore getting into that, because this is a pretty nice way to make a living. I mean, no doubt it's very hard. I would imagine it's probably something like shooting a wedding in terms of the number of hours a day that you're going to be on your feet and taking pictures for. So don't expect it to be a holiday, but nevertheless, you will be potentially either flying to lots of different locations around the world, or maybe you could station yourself and actually base yourself in a holiday destination and get people to come to you and document their holiday when they come and visit in that area. So maybe you could go and live somewhere interesting or nice that you've always wanted to live, and offer that as a service to people when they come to your locality. And if you already live somewhere which is hot for tourists and you get a lot of visitors coming in from other places, this may well be something that you as a professional may want to add to your portfolio of things that you do, particularly if you're already in something like wedding photography or event photography. If you do that kind of stuff, this I would imagine would be very much in your sphere of things to do. So top tip there for anybody looking at new ways to make money at photography. So let's have a look now at Instagram. Obviously, Instagram came to fame for doing square pictures. It really made the square format on the internet very popular. And this is partly because the app was designed to be used on a mobile device, which was often held in a portrait orientation, as opposed to traditionally the desktop or laptop environment, which is at a more of like a horizontal landscape orientation. So they went for square format, and then that way, wherever you look at the pictures, it will still look nice. You're not sort of cropping anything off there. It is also quite stylistic. It means you can have the pictures in little tiles, and it just kind of looks clean and neat and sets the pictures apart from other places online. They became kind of an instantly recognizable format with the square cut and the obviously famous Instagram filters that allow you to put on different effects. It was pretty, it's almost become a term in itself to kind of like make something look Instagrammy. We kind of know what that means, and often that means with a sort of vintage retro feeling treatment to the picture and in a square format. However, it isn't always useful. If you're shooting, with most cameras, they shoot in a 3:2 format most of the time. And it's worse if you shoot video to upload onto Instagram, because that's shot in 16:9 more times than not. So that means that when Instagram then crop that, you're losing a lot of the information. So if you've taken a group shot, for example, it may well be that the people that were sat on the outside edges were being cropped off in the picture. So there are third-party apps that people have been using to get around that, and putting black bars either at the top and bottom if they were recording in landscape, or at the sides if they were recording in portrait, to fill that out and make it square but still have like the whole picture in there. It would just be smaller within those black boxes. But now the app itself, Instagram, have finally allowed you to put the black bars on it with a button in the app. It's an in-app thing that you can go and do that. So that's for both the stills and the video, which is pretty cool. That went out this week, so if you haven't already updated your app, then do that. Let us know what you think in the comments about that one. Do you think that this has kind of ruined the famous aesthetic that Instagram has built their brand on, and is it now really that much different from other places online you might want to share your photos, like 500px or Flickr, or there's a million places these days that you can actually do that. So it'd be interesting to hear if you've been waiting for this for a long time, or if you're actually pretty frustrated that this now kind of takes away its USP a little bit and makes it just like everything else. So, lastly, we're going to be having a look. This is a preview of Photoshop Mobile, an app to be launched in October this year. And what's happening is that obviously we've already had Lightroom go ahead and become a mobile app for iOS and Android, we're now going in the same direction with Photoshop. It won't be the same Photoshop as you've got on your desktop or your laptop right now. It will be a pared down version of that. And it will be more consumer orientated, they're saying. It'll be more for the entry level people that don't necessarily know where all the tools in regular Photoshop are. This is going to be something that's a little bit easier to manage and a little bit simpler to use. And I think this is going to be pretty divisive when it comes out. Basically, because it is going to be so stripped down, and also you are limited with, by being on a mobile platform, just with the amount of computing power that you've got, in something like an iPhone compared to something like an iMac, or Android and Windows equivalent. It's exactly the same thing, but like a little tablet or smartphone is not going to have the processing power to handle the same kind of heavy duty photo editing that you would be able to do on a main computer. So what's the point? I mean, some people may be saying, well, look, I can never see myself, getting my iPhone out to, to do stuff that I would do in Photoshop. At a pinch, maybe Lightroom for mobile. You could imagine, if you're syncing your phone these days via Wi-Fi, a lot of cameras do that. You can get the picture beamed straight over to your phone, and then you can make Lightroom adjustments to it. Basic stuff like contrast and saturation and those type of things, shadow and highlight recovery, that sort of detail. That might be something that is something useful, but with Photoshop, that's traditionally for the more heavy lifting of photo manipulation. So something where you might be creating images out of multiple layers. Maybe you're making composites. Maybe you're doing retouching, which takes quite a lot of processing power. The more things that you retouch, the more things you airbrush out or add in. That takes a lot more memory power to actually do that type of operation. So it might seem like it's a little bit overkill perhaps for a mobile device. However, the way I see it is that Adobe, I think they're trying everything they can not to fall into the same trap that Microsoft did, who basically, as we've seen from the recent launch, or just the information that came out pre the launch of Windows 10, that the number of users of Microsoft products is just dropping drastically, and there's a big rise in Linux and in Mac-based systems and in Android-based systems who are taking up that void. And the reason is that Microsoft simply haven't been that quick off the mark to migrate over to mobile platforms, and the reality is that we are all moving away from desktop and laptop environments onto tablets and onto smartphones. And whilst it's true that right now those devices are not really powerful enough to be able to get the heavy lifting of that type of photo work done, it is only a matter of time. If you think it was only a couple of years ago that there was no way that your smartphone would have been able to play an HD video, and now it can, and there are some phones out there that can play 4K in native 4K resolution, it is really only a matter of time, and probably a short amount of time before you can at least, if not on a smartphone, which might have maybe too small a screen, but certainly on an iPad, you may well be able to get full Adobe on there, the full Adobe Photo, and be able to get Photoshop, Premiere Pro, Auditions, all After Effects, all the things that you're used to on your full Adobe suite, on a mobile device that you can take out into the field with you and use on location. So I think being an early player in the market, even though it might seem a little bit redundant now, is actually a pretty smart move. And it will also, because they will have a toehold in that market and people will be used to seeing their familiar bits of software of Photoshop, Lightroom, and no doubt others will follow in the future. They're used to those familiar things. They know how they work. They know that it's going to be compatible with their desktop environments. It means that they have got a little bit of protection against any future mobile app that may and is undoubtedly going to be coming out in the future, which will tempt people that, if you get like a mobile only version of something that's equivalent to Photoshop coming out in 5 years' time, at the point where the technology is there to support something fully fledged, then people may well migrate over to it. But if they've already got Photoshop on there, they've had several iterations of it, they know it's a mature platform, they know the support is there, then this may well help them in the future. So I think that this probably will not be hugely popular compared to their desktop versions of the software. That's my personal impression. Certainly, I know there are a lot of photographers who use Lightroom Mobile. I don't use it an awful lot, mainly because I don't really take things that quickly from, I tend not to, although the XT1 does allow me to Wi-Fi stuff across to the phone and then, wherever I want. I tend not to do that. I tend to like to, work on the pictures when I get them back on a big screen. I tend to like to sit on them a little bit and let them percolate and let them speak to me and figure out which ones are the best ones, rather than just sort of streaming them straight up. So it's, for me, it's not something that I will probably be using, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts as to whether or not this is something that you'll be downloading and having a play with, or if you've just been waiting for a damn long time for this to come out and you're finally, chuffed that they've actually come out with this, or if you think it's complete nonsense and there's nothing that would entice you to download Photoshop for mobile at all. But let me know your comments on that. As always, thanks very much for listening. If you're listening to the podcast, thanks very much for watching if you're watching on YouTube. And as always, thanks very much for reading the articles over on framedplanet.com. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Cheers.